Alright guys, so what are we doing here? We got both a Rog Ally and a Rog Ally X. So what are we going to be doing here today? Well, I've had some hands-on time with the Rog Ally X. I picked it up last week, and there's a lot of videos out there, tons of videos of people doing comparison of how they like it and how they don't like it, what's good about it, what's not good about it, what's the same and what's different when comparing both units. So because I had some hands-on time with it, I'm going to go ahead and give you guys my take on it, and I'm going to be doing some very short comparisons and giving you my final thoughts of me having this unit for about 2 weeks. So let's go ahead and jump in it. So first off, let's take a look at both units as well as the box. And of course, we all know this is the last year's edition. I call it the White Knight. And then we have the Dark Knight, which is the Rog Ally X, a new unit that just came out. And as you can see, the boxes are very, very, very similar. Pretty much the same. And for some reason, I kind of like the white better. But nonetheless, they're the same. Packaging is the same. We have the Dark Knight, aka Rog Ally X, and we have last year's edition, the White Knight. Now I have a skin on here, a grip rather, and actually this grip is pretty good, man. I love it. So I'm going to compare the button presses. A lot of people, you know, they complain about the buttons. I personally don't have any issues with the buttons or the analog. Yes, the analogs are loose, but I have no issues with playing games. They actually feel really, really well. And honestly, I kind of like the analogs better on the white version versus the X version. The D-pad, never had an issue with the D-pad, or the D-pad was cool. Good D-pads are hard to come across these days anyway. Oh, matter of fact, so we're gonna look at the top. Let's look at the top. So you have the power buttons on both. You have the power button, the right trigger. You have the volume rocker right here. This is a LED light that lets you know the system is on and it's charging. You have the SD micro card slot right here, which has been moved. You have the 3.5 millimeter jack, which has been moved. So it seems like everything's shipped over to the side. So the 3.5 millimeter jack on the last year's edition is right here. Damn, I accidentally turned it on. SD card slot is on the left versus SD card slot being on the right. On the X version, the vent, well, there's an additional vent right here that I've noticed, and two vents on the left and the right sides, on the same sides obviously, and you have the Lightning USB-C charger right here and the standard USB charger right here. So you can not only charge your system at the same time as well as plug in a USB-C headset to listen to it. Now I've done that, sounds phenomenal. I use my headphones that came with my old S20. It sounds pretty good, still kick ass till this day. And then right here on the white model you have the slot right here. I forgot what you call it, where you can connect an external GPU to this one. And there was some controversy about this as well, because on this one, on the Rog Ally X, you can actually use a USB-C connection with an external GPU. So I don't know if that's a lot easier versus the exclusive one they had on the white edition. I've heard the white edition is better than I've heard the USB-C version is better on the Rog Ally X, because it's more common and it's easy to hook up. But I heard there are limitations to using USB-C versus the white edition that uses a totally different exclusive slot. But I don't know, I've never tried. I just rather use a desktop, to be honest with you. And we're gonna take a look at the buttons on this thing. So they said the buttons are better on the X, but I mean, that's pretty much subjective. It's all the same to me. I don't think anything was wrong with the buttons and the analog, like I said before, on the white edition. Now the D-pad, they definitely changed it out. I didn't have a problem with the D-pad on the white edition. Like I've stated before, the analogs has a bit of resistance to it, slightly. Some people prefer this over the white edition. I have no issues with the white edition. I honestly think I prefer the button schemes and the analog setup on the white edition versus the black edition. And again, there's nothing wrong with the buttons and the analogs on the X version versus the white version. Is pretty much preference. I think it's all the same, but I just prefer the analogs on the white edition. I have no issues with either the shoulder buttons or the face buttons or the analogs on the white edition. It's pretty much almost the same with a slight difference, but it's gonna all boil down to personal preference. I just prefer the analog and the buttons on the white edition. Let me turn this bad boy off. Shut it down. And let's talk about the famous back buttons. Now the back buttons are a bit smaller. I've seen a lot of YouTubers complaining about the back buttons on the white edition. They said that when you hold it, they're always touching the back buttons. Honestly, I've never had any issues touching the back buttons. And I think a lot of YouTubers are saying that because everybody else is saying that. I don't think they're going off of their own reconnaissance, and that's what I hate about YouTube. Everybody always goes off of the next person to say. Some people haven't even held the Rog Ally, and they're saying that they have issues of them actually touching the back ones. I have no issues. And even when I do, sometimes, which is very rare, when I do touch the back buttons, it doesn't really do anything to the gameplay. It doesn't affect gameplay, because it's not set to do anything anyway. But I had no issues with it. So whether they change it or not on a newer unit, it really wouldn't matter to me, because I don't really have any issues touching it at all. And when I do touch it, it doesn't do anything to disrupt my gameplay. Now, as you can see, they moved it over some. On top of that, made it smaller so you wouldn't accidentally hit it. And they actually did a really, really great job of doing that, because even though I have my fingers on the back, I don't really touch it at all. It's almost like it isn't there, so you really have to kind of go out your way to touch it. So I guess that's a good improvement right there for a lot of people that had issues with them touching them accidentally touching the button on the white edition. So there you go. You won't have to worry about it anymore. The shoulder buttons are cool. Never had any issue with it on the standard model. It's funny, man, you really can't test the buttons out by just pressing them like that. You really have to be actually playing the game to really see if it makes a big difference. Nice screensaver. So we're gonna do this. Gonna shut them both down. and I'm gonna do a test. We're gonna do a boot up test. Let me adjust my camera here. Adjust that angle. And as you can see, the white edition is taking its sweet time to shut down. And sometimes that's another issue I have with the Rog Ally. It takes its sweet time to shut off, but we'll go ahead and wait till it shut off and get into the video. Alright, so they're both off, so we're gonna go ahead and do the boot up test. Let's see which system starts up the fastest. That was a fail on my end. I was holding the button on the Rog Ally Standard Edition and it wouldn't start up. For some strange reason, the white edition won't start up, so forget about it. All of a sudden it doesn't want to work. So automatically the Rog Ally X actually automatically boots into Armory Crate. I kind of don't like that really, but it is what it is, and it comes stock with these game platforms: Steam, Xbox, EA, and you can add your own as well. I haven't added my own yet. I just went with the stock platforms that they have here. And let's check out some games. So what you guys will immediately notice is the battery life on this thing, and that's the reason why I got this unit, because of the battery life. The Rog Ally out the box, the last year's edition, the White Knight edition, I really liked it. I mean, it took me off of the Steam Deck. It's like one of my favorite handhelds, PC handhelds to be exact, is the Rog Ally. But the only problem I had with it was the terrible battery life. If you're playing a AAA game, you're only going to get like 40 minutes from my testing. If you're lucky, an hour, maybe an hour and 20 minutes. It just depends. If you have settings really low, you might can push it to like an hour and 20, maybe. But if you're playing from medium to high settings, you might get just 40 minutes to an hour, about that. So that's not long enough to game. I've seen people in my comment section that complain and make excuses saying that, well, I only have time to game for an hour. If you only have time to game for an hour, then video games should not be your hobby. You should change your hobby, because I don't know anybody that games for an hour. And the thing with these PC handhelds, they sound really good on paper. They sound like they demolish a Switch on paper. But when you have it in your hands, you see it's not as simple as it sounds. Everything sounds good on paper until you have it in your hands. But if you're a true gamer and this thing is made for portable play, you want more than 40 minutes to an hour of gaming. So I think that's where the PC handhelds dropped the ball. And I have to give it to Asus with the Rog Ally X, because they answered the call and they understood that you need more juice while playing video games on the go. So they opted for, and I believe it's an 80-watt battery. This is the biggest battery that's in a PC handheld, for any handheld at the matter. And that's the sole reason, the sole purpose why I got this thing. Everything else, as far as the additional 24 gigs of RAM, is cool and everything. I don't really see a difference, but I mean, how many RAMs do you really need for a video game? I believe the standard Rog Ally has 16 gigabytes of RAM, which is more than sufficient for playing any and all games, just like the consoles. The consoles has 16 gigs of RAM, but it doesn't use 16 gigs of RAM. I believe 8 gigs of RAM is a sweet spot for all games on the PC handheld. But since we're talking about the ROG Ally, 8 gigs of RAM is really what you need and what people said it's even with the standard edition. Now with the ROG Ally X, you can actually customize how many gigs of RAM you want to use. For example, you can use 6, 8, 10, 12. I've tried using 12 before, but I really don't see a difference. I just put it back on the standard 8. Now, everybody wants to know, okay, it's ROG Ally X is all fine and good, all well and fine, 24 gigs of RAM and a bigger battery. Now, what are the issues have you been facing? The issue, and I don't know if it's an issue yet, I don't know if it's my unit, but we all know how it is when you go out there and you're the first person to buy the newest and latest thing. Because remember, the first batch of units that they ship out to stores with any product, may be subjective to having some kind of defects. That's why it's always good to wait where, these PC handhelds are shipped out at a later date, the second or third batch where all the kinks are ironed out from the launch model, and you don't have to worry about anything, you don't have to worry about any returns. And I don't know if I'm surprised on that, and in a way I'm not surprised, but man, this thing just came out and there's a lot of people I've seen in the comment section have told me that, they bought an open box version, which means people bought this day one and people have returned it. So I really want to know why to return it. And I mean, I haven't heard anybody complain about those open box units, but of course they're not going to complain about it now, But I'm pretty sure there's a reason why they took it back. Maybe there was some kind of defect and they took it back. So if you have an open box version, maybe that might be one of the defective units. Now, usually, me, the game master, I'm great with always having good luck. For the past decades, whenever I get a new system, day one, it always works for me. No issues, no problems. If they were very minor that I don't really notice it, but for the most part, I've never had any issues with my new consoles that I can think of. I'm not sure if I returned, I swapped out my launch model, ROG Ally. I don't think I did actually, but it had a few kinks here and there, but with more software updates, the system ran a lot better and I never really had issues. And I had an issue where out of the box it was working fine, then they came out with a BIOS update and actually that messed the system up and made it run different. Like I could have sworn that out of the box, the sound of the ROG Ally was great, but with the update, the sound got lower, which was kind of weird. Now speaking of sound, the sound on the ROG Ally X is actually better in comparison to the last year's model. I definitely tested out myself, and I thought the sound on the original OG ROG Ally was great until I compare it to the X. The X sounds a little bit more louder and it sounds crisper and clearer, and with headphones it sounds even way better, especially with earbuds versus over the head headphones. At least that's my experience. Now, I guess one of the issues that I'm having with it, and I kind of went off track a little bit, was when I'm playing AAA games, or like it'll make like, I don't know if it's the fan, it'll make like a noise, and it feels like the fan is struggling or something. I don't know what it was. I tested it outside when I was at work. It was on a very, very hot day, and I was playing King of Fighters, the old school King of Fighters 98, and I had a system that the screen just went black on me twice. I don't know if it was really hot outside and the system couldn't handle it, because the system is a PC, so it pushes out a lot of heat. So I don't know the combination of the system getting hot itself versus me being outside in the heat had anything to do with a blank screen after, playing it for a good bit, or me going into sleep mode and coming out of sleep mode, which I did do because, I was at work, so I can't play it like for hours straight. So to cut it off and cut it on every now and then, but it'll make a noise. Like, it just sounds like the fan is struggling, and then I can feel it right here in my palm. So it's kind of weird. It does that with certain games. And when I test it again, for example, I was playing Wolfenstein, I would hear the fan go on and off. I don't know if it's the motors that's making that sound or the fan, but it didn't cut off on me though, so that's a big thing. But today's the last day. I have to exchange it if I have any issues with it, so I really have to put the system through its paces and make sure it's normal. It could be a situation where you have to set the fan curve, or could this be a situation where it may be defective, I don't know, or could be another situation where an update would simply fix that. So they did change the fans on the X versus the standard edition last year's model. I think the fans on the last year model is a lot bigger than the fans on the X. The fans on the X is smaller from what I've seen. I've seen somebody take it apart, so because it's small, it might, it might be working a little bit harder. But it's kind of concerning a little bit when you're playing the game, and the fan is just it just sounds like you driving a car or something. But so far, I haven't really had any issues playing any games on here. They work fantastic. And the cool thing is, guys, that I would like to really mention about the Ally X, what I really like. Okay, so the silent mode is a lot better than the silent mode on last year's model. The silent mode in the X, I believe, is 13 watts, which means you can play a lot of games, a lot of AAA games, even on silent mode, which is the lowest wattage mode on the Rog Ally X. It consumes the least power. I thought that was awesome. I think on Wolfenstein in the silent mode, I was getting like over 106 frames, and I didn't turn anything down. But then when I looked again, the frame rate kind of dropped a little bit, which it stayed at 60. So you can get 60 FPS performance in silent mode. If you put in performance, you already know you're gonna get hell of a lot of frame rates. I'm talking about almost a full 120 or 116. And between the performance mode and turbo mode, you go, boy. You already know you're gonna get lots of frames. But it's good to know that you can actually play games in silent mode now without even have to tweak anything. That's awesome. And if you play with lower settings on top of that, you already know you're gonna get 60 frames per second, plus even more battery life.
Remember, you showed me the ring, the one I met on the special. Well, I did. And then a little ride on her finger.
As you can see, silent mode, 60 FPS. So we're gonna walk around a bit. What's going on? I'm not gonna lie, I was having issues trying to move. Oh, another thing too, guys, another problem I did have with the Rog Ally X is when you hit the menu button to switch, it doesn't even switch. I don't know, maybe it's something that I did as far as like in the settings that I'm not aware of, but you can pretty much tap it, but you should be able to use the analog as well to select what operating mode you want to use, but some of the times it does not work. I don't know why. It was working at one point. Sometimes it registers your finger presses and sometimes it doesn't. So that's the issue I'm running into with the X, and I didn't have that issue with the standard model. And you would think with the launch of the X that it will be on par with the standard edition Rog Ally, being that all the kinks were ironed out with last year's model, that it actually picked up from that. But I feel like it doesn't. It just has its own issues, which is just weird to me, because all those kinks were ironed out with the launch of last year's model, because that model been on the market for quite some time now. Let me turn the brightness up for you guys. I don't know how I got. Oh, now look at so right now it's in performance mode, 17 watts, and look at the frame rate, 482. That is crazy. So when it doesn't even make any sense, I test the turbo mode out. But then again, let me do it for you guys. The turbo mode goes up to 25 watts still. Wow, that's just overkill. So let's put it back in performance mode and see. Oh, now it's saying 60, so I guess that was for the cutscene. And we all know that the Rog Ally X has, even the standard model, last year model, has variable refresh rate. It has a variable refresh rate screen, that's VRR. So the games will look and play smooth even when the frame rate drops, which is awesome. And it's kind of funny how the other PC handhelds never really use that screen, which is weird to me. You thought the Steam Deck OLED would do the same thing, but and also I think the nits, I'm not sure if it's the same, the nits I believe it's 500 on the X, whereas on the last year's model was 487, I believe. I could be wrong. It could be the same. I don't know. Because when I first got this unit, another issue I had was I felt like the colors were washed out on the X. Feels like they were colors washed out, and the screen was a lot dimmer versus last year's model, which is a huge step back. But a quick Google search, I went into settings, turned off some kind of brightness settings they had on there that was stagnating the console brightness, and adjusted the brightness myself via settings. And in comparison, when I went back and tried to compare it to the standard Rog Ally, actually the screen seemed like it's brighter, and the colors are it's a tad bit better on the X versus the standard edition. Excuse me, guys, you have to forgive me, because I'm the type of guy when I play games, man, especially games where you have to pick up files and stuff. I always search for the files, you know, and try to get the achievement. So, excuse my boring gameplay. But it seems like on the cutscenes we're getting 187 frames, but it's still 60 frames on the gameplay. And I believe I have it set to 60 FPS, so it's not going to go past 60 FPS. But even if you do have it set to 60 FPS, you should still see the higher frame rate that it can play in. But we're going to, once this cutscene is over, we're going to see. Wolfenstein 2, the Wolfenstein 2, guys. So, you know, I'm a huge Wolfenstein fan. Dope series. He's just reminiscent. He's reminiscing. Bessie. Now we're getting around 25 frames. Oh, that's why I forgot. I customize my own operating mode. I have a 7 watt mode, and I use that mode to play like indie games and such. So we're looking at 60 right now. Frame rate limiter off. See, as you can see that I'm having issues, like the game just, I can't even control it. I don't know what's going on. I'm using gamepad mode, so we're looking at 60. Let's see if I can, we're gonna see if we can play around with the resolution mode. We're gonna see if we can play around with the frames per second mode. I'm trying to find that advanced settings. Okay, max frame rate. Okay. So we're gonna set it to 120 because anything after 120, you won't be able to see the difference because this is a 120 FPS screen. And let's look at the resolution. Let's look at what we got going on. Okay, 720p. Let's go to advanced, go back to advanced settings, and everything is set to high. So we're gonna leave it on high. I believe it was an ultra when I first got it. Okay, so let's see. So, okay, the frame rate went up. And also I've heard that with the Rog Ally X, when you change operating modes, for example, from silent to performance to turbo, it takes a bit of time for the system to pick up. So if you switch from performance to turbo, you're not going to see the immediate effects right away. You have to wait for a little bit before it picks up. I don't know the exact minutes. It takes time to pick up, but so. So now we're getting 86 frames, 91 frames. You know what, I'm boring you guys. Let's see if I can. I'm actually trying to, wow. So we'll leave it at that. I'm trying to get into a firefight with you guys, man. I'm trying to get into a firefight so you guys can see if the frame rate's in action. I want to see the frame rate will drop. It's a good thing I came down here. I just found something. Yeah, I wanted to get into a firefight with the enemies, and we'll see if the frame rate tanks or not. That's nothing. I remember, guys, I was telling you I was having, the fans was making noise, and I can hear it. I don't know if you can hear it. Man, Wolfenstein is such a great series. I love the series. A lot of action, a lot of shooting, a lot of violence, a lot of gore.
What the hell is wrong with you? You let them take your property, they're gonna walk all over you till there's nothing left. Now, I gave you that pocket knife. It was in your care. It's your responsibility.
With cutscenes, you're getting very high frame rates in the 480s.
Gonna let your mommy fight your battles for you, are you, boy?
Gotta love the storyline and the dialogue in Wolfenstein. Alright, let's see what else we got. Let's Oh, I should have went to Armory Crate. That's what I should have did. I see Armory Crate confuses me, guys. Like, that's why I just download the Steam app and I just use the Steam app from the dashboard instead of through Armory Crate. What can we try? What game you want to see me try? Okay, this is a good one. This is a cool fighting game, by the way. I think it's unbalanced, but it's a fun fighting game. Now, while I'm at it, let's talk about the SD card issues from the standard Rog Ally. So, as we all know, last year's model Rog Ally had the SD card issue where it'd fry your SD cards or the SD card slot would get burnt out. That actually happened to me. It didn't damage my memory card. At first I thought it did because my memory card wouldn't work when I put it in another device, but after a while it started to work, which was weird. So my SD card slot was actually fried on the white model, and I sent it in. Asus did a really great job. Had some issues getting there, but when it finally got to Asus, they took care of it and they sent it back to me and they fixed it. So the SD card slot is fixed on the white edition, and I tried using the memory card again. It worked, but I never really actually like hardcore tested out to see if it would burn out again. After it burnt out the first time, even though they fixed it, I was more conscious on using it after a while. So I just never use it again. If I do use it, I only use it for like a little bit. I don't know if it was a permanent fix. This guy right here is OP Vanguard. Very OP character. And for this game, the settings, I actually have it on ultra. Everything is on ultra, so we're gonna get like around 60, solid 60 frames. But they said the SD card slot is fixed on here. They moved it, so it shouldn't have that issue again. But I haven't tested it out. I just feel as using SD cards on the Rog Ally, it always stresses the card. So you better, and it's so easy to upgrade the internal memory for the Rog Ally X. And forgive me guys while I'm stuttering because it's hard to do gameplay and talk at the same time. I can only do either or. That's why in the beginning of the video I did pretty well. This guy's so OP. Trying to hit me with a special move. Because it's a performance mode, let's try turbo. Got him. See, it's still stuck on. I don't know why it doesn't work. You see what I'm saying, guys? So that's an issue. I can't change the operating mode. I don't know what's going on with it. So that's a kink they have to work out. Obviously, they have to come out with an update. And obviously, you're going to run into issues by being an early buyer. So just keep that in mind. If you're one of those people that got lucky, got the system, everything is working and functionally like it's supposed to, kudos to you. I wish that was me. So that's the issue. That's one of the issues that I'm having with the Rog Ally. See, I'm trying to change the operating mode. It doesn't change. It's not registering. I don't know what's going on with that. There's nothing an update can't fix. So I guess the Rog Ally X has to go through the ringer before they come out with several updates to improve the system's software. So that's the issue I'm having. Maybe I can just probably still hold on to it, just like I did with this one, because I never exchanged this one. I just kept it, and over time the updates made it a lot better. And I'm assuming the same thing will happen to the Rog Ally X. But so far so good, and I'm realizing I'm not having issues with the fan anymore. I don't hear it working so hard anymore. So that's actually a great thing. So I'm gonna go ahead and just now it wants to switch to turbo mode. I also too, what I noticed about a Rog Ally is doing gameplay, it's kind of hard to switch operating modes. You're better off switching operating modes like before you start the game. Oh man, I could be wrong though, but it feels that way, at least to me. Some instances I can change it, and some instances I can't. So yeah, I could even turn my oh, now it wants to turn on. Wow. I'm sorry guys, please forgive me for failing the boot up animation comparison between both consoles, man, but I don't know, they both start up pretty fast. I don't really see a difference. It's basically the same chipset they're using. Only difference is the X has 24 gigs of RAM versus the 16 gigs of RAM on here. So I've heard the games run smoother on here, and I'm assuming that it will run smoother on the X because of the more RAM that this unit has. So games, yeah, obviously, logically in the real world, will run a lot smoother. SD card slot, I really don't know if they improved it or they fixed it, but something tells me I want to go ahead and give them the okay and say that they did fix the SD card slot on here, because they'll be foolish not to, because that was one of the biggest issues and a serious issue that Asus had with last year's model. So I'm gonna go ahead and say they did fix it, but only time will tell. I haven't tested it out yet, but I'll let you guys know. But so far so good. The biggest thing with the Rog is the battery life. The battery life on this thing is so great, and I think this unit has the best game time on here. Like I played Sulaco, matter of fact. Let's take a look at Sulaco. I feel like this game is kind of overrated, but it's a shooting game, and open GM, Vulcan, ask me each time. It's a shooting game. It reminds me of Doom and Fear put together, which sounds good on paper, but this game is better than neither one of them. But this is a shooting game, so I know you guys like first-person shooter games, so I'm gonna go ahead and give you some gameplay on that. But yeah, man, the system does have its kinks. It's early adopter kinks. It's nothing serious. I think it's okay. It's fine. Not a big deal. If you want to wait and get the system, you can. For those who have the money, I can get it. Go ahead and get it. It's not a problem. And the issues you're having, I'm pretty sure the updates would fix it, just like they did with last year's model. Okay. And for some reason, man, this game Wow, so okay, so I'm in silent mode and I'm getting. So I'm in silent mode, and this is my own custom operating mode, 7 watts, and it's at 60 FPS. Hot damn. Okay. Oh, I died right here. I think I passed this part already. I just like quit. Booby trap, broken ground. Yeah. Okay, so yeah. Take no prisoners. Okay, so that noise I'm hearing is actually the rumble. Sounds like I'm getting a haircut. Whoa. Yeah. I'm almost out of bullets, fellas. And the survivors, I'm actually enjoying this game. Oh wow, that just hurt myself. That's stupid. Not bad, not bad, not a bad game at all. Alright, so do you guys hear that sound? I don't know what that is. It's loud, you can hear it. Sounds like a pair of clippers. But let's go ahead and I'm gonna put this in sleep mode for a second. And you don't hear that buzzing noise with the last year's model. So that sounds kind of concerning to me. I don't know what it is. It sounds like the fan. It just sounds like the system is just working really hard. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, or just that the fans are loud with my unit. So I don't know. So I want to give you guys my last and final thoughts on the Rog Ally X. You've seen all the videos. Thank you for taking the time out to take a look at my video, to watch another video and hear my thoughts rather. And the final verdict is, matter of fact, who is this unit for? Who is this really for? Now, you might be asking yourself, if you have the standard model, should you upgrade to the newer model? Now, that all depends on how much what your funds are like. If money is no object and you have the money to upgrade to it, I say go ahead, for the simple fact just the battery life alone. You're getting 80 watts from this unit, which means you're gonna have plenty of playtime. We're talking about Nintendo Switch territory, maybe even more, depending on the games that you play. So with AAA games, of course, the battery life is more than double. You know, playing Cyberpunk on this unit, for example, in Elden Ring, I don't know, you might get, let's just say, I don't know, I've seen an hour and 20 minutes. We're gonna give or take, right? This unit I've seen on YouTube, people push it, playing Elden Ring and Cyberpunk, they got like 3.5 hours. So that's pretty much Nintendo Switch, Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild launch territory battle life. We're talking for AAA games, which is actually more than decent. And I was saying to myself, these PC handhelds, before they started using bigger batteries, if you can get the games, AAA games, to run within like 3.5 hours max, that's actually beautiful. That's great. So anything that's not AAA, you should get tons of battery life. So with a AAA game, you're looking at anywhere from 3.5 hours, 2.5 hours, and a AA game, an indie game, I mean, you're looking at, I don't know, guys, 5 hours. And I hate to be guessing here, but with 80 watts and you play, if you have an 80 watt battery, you're playing indie games, dude, you're getting like 8 hours tops. AA games, you're getting 5 hours, 5.5 hours or better. AAA games, anywhere from 2.5 to 3.5, even 3.5. And that can range from literally 3.5 hours, 3 hours and 30 minutes to 3 hours and 45 minutes. So this thing is pretty much worth it just for the battery life alone. Now, if you don't have any money like that, I say stick with the OG Rog Ally. It's still a dope system. It's great to me. I have no issues with the face buttons, the analogs, the D-pad, the shoulder buttons, even the buttons, the macro buttons on the back. I have no issues whatsoever. It's still a good unit. If you can get it on sale, which I'm pretty sure you can on eBay. Amazon has deals from time to time, and you can find some sweet deals on eBay. Like I said, I mean, I'll get it. You know what I'm saying? So you're still good, but just keep in mind that with this unit, it does has the SD card issues. You can always upgrade the internal memory. The standard comes stock with 512 gigabytes. The Rog Ally X comes stock with 1 terabyte, which is awesome. And it even made it easier to upgrade the internal memory on this unit. You can actually use the same SSD solid state drive that they're using the PS5 and the PC and stick it in here. You ask, how does it fit? Hey, they customized the system, they built it, they designed it a certain way where it fits with no issues. And I think that's dope, because you don't have to go around looking for those micro SSD cards that the Steam Deck uses. The Steam Deck uses the small square one, the real small square one, which is fine. I have no issues with that. This one right here, you can still use that big SSD memory stick, which is dope. So, and they're easy to find. You can just go to Best Buy. You always see it on display. You can order it on Amazon. You can get a 2 terabyte for cheap. I believe it's like 1 something, 2 something. I can't remember. But if I'm gonna upgrade the memory for my Rog Ally, I'm pretty much gonna just. I might as well go ahead and jump the gun and just upgrade it to a 4 terabyte SSD. That makes more sense in my brain because, for some people it's not really hard to really, to take this thing apart. It has 6 screws, 3 at the bottom, 3 at the top. You wedge it out with a credit card or whatever. There's plenty of tutorials on YouTube on how to do that. It's easy to really swap the SSD card out in this thing. But if I'm going to go through all that trouble, which you can risk even, breaking the ribbons on the system where it doesn't work anymore, and this unit is pretty expensive at $800. So you really want to take your time when you're taking this thing apart to upgrade a memory card. But if I'm going to go through the trouble, I'm just going to slap a 4 terabyte card in there versus the 2 terabyte, because 2 terabyte is a lot, but if you're keeping this thing for several months or several years, 2 terabytes could quickly fill up, because I believe even with my Steam library, 2 terabytes is not enough. 2 terabytes cannot hold my whole library on here, but 4 terabytes, 5 terabytes might. So it just makes sense in my brain just to go big. Well, risk opening your unit and breaking it just to add 1 more terabyte. You might as well go ahead and upgrade to a 4 terabyte plus a 1 terabyte memory card will get you 5 terabytes. There's 2.5 terabyte cards out now, so that'll be 4, 5, 6.5 terabytes. So you're good to go, especially when you use it as a PC. Now, I don't use this as a PC. It's just still a gaming machine to me, so I use it for all gaming. Haven't tried emulation on it yet, but from what I've seen, it's pretty dope. Awesome system, guys, and I'm sorry for ranting here. Sorry for just going on a rave, just talking, but hey, this is how I do my channel, man. I just talk a lot. I just want to make sure I cover all the details for you guys. And if you guys have any questions, man, about it, just let me know in the comment section. I'll be happy to help you guys out on this. The video is a lot longer than I wanted it to be, but it is what it is. I'm trying to touch on everything. Hopefully the SD card slot works on this thing, has no issues. I'm pretty sure they fixed the issues. It's a newer unit, and ASUS was well aware of the SD card issues from last year's model. The D-pad, in hindsight, at first glance, it looks cool. It's an 8-way, or supposedly 8-way D-pad, kind of like how the Sega Genesis was, but I think the Sega Genesis D-pad feels a lot better than this. I actually prefer the D-pad on this one, even though this one's not perfect, but it feels weird, really. But when you start playing the games, I never really had any issues. But this one, for me, I think it actually feels weirder than this one. I think the D-pad on the standard one was better to me, honestly. This one's a little bit easier on the thumbs though when you touch it, but I tried playing some fighting games on it, depending on what kind of fighting game you're playing. I tried playing those 2D fighting games like King of Fighters, and the D-pad was definitely not working for me. I had to use analog sticks, and I don't use analog sticks when I play fighting games, but over the years I've become accustomed to using the analog sticks to actually play my fighting games. I've gotten used to it. It works better than the D-pad, whereas in the past, like on the Super Nintendo and those old 32-bit systems, the D-pad was actually the way to go when it came to fighting games. I just think it was more precise, more hands-on, but this depends on what game you're playing. But the D-pad to me is not great on here. It's definitely not terrible. It's not bad at all whatsoever, but I just prefer the D-pad on the standard model. Now, I'm going to tell you another issue that's kind of concerning. if you look on the last year's model, you have a space right here. There's a gap between the D-pad and the screen, so you won't accidentally touch the screen. Now, the mistake they made with this unit, they made it too close to the screen. As you can see that I'm touching the D-pad, forward on the D-pad, and I'm already, my thumb is hovering over the screen. The same thing with the analog stick on this one, but it's not so bad because this one has a little bit more space versus the D-pad on the left. But yes, I've actually ran into issues where I'm playing a fighting game, an intense fighting game, and I'm trying to do the Hadoukens and Shoryukens and see your thumb is already on the screen, and I will always touch the screen, and the game I was playing, if you touch the screen, it pauses the game, so the game will always pause. So I think it was a stupid idea to move the D-pad closer to the screen. That was definitely a bad idea. They had it right with a standard Rog Ally, so I don't know why, but possessed them to move the D-pad closer to the screen. I didn't like that. The D-pad should at least hang back a little bit. You don't want the D-pad close to the screen, so you will accidentally touch the screen. Trust me that it happened to me a lot. People complain about on the old Rog Ally, they will always accidentally touch the macro buttons on the back. Well, for me, I accidentally touch the screen way too much than I want to. So that's really a design flaw. I think the design they had with the standard, let me take the skin off, standard Rog Ally was fine. They should never had moved around the D-pad closer to the screen. And I actually like the ergonomics, believe it or not, better on the standard Rog Ally, or maybe because I had the skin on it. With the skin on it, this grip, it actually gives it, it actually makes it feel better. But out of the box, this thing was heavy. It had some weight to it, and it was kind of weighing me down because when I was playing it, I just felt like it was cramping my hands because it was so small. But then again, I had gout in my hands around that time too, so maybe that was really affecting how I held the system. But I feel like the system, the X is a little bit smaller somewhere. And just by looking at it, you can tell it's a little bit smaller. Maybe just me. I don't quite know the dimensions, but I feel as if this is more comfortable. This is actually a lot lighter now that I'm holding it than the X. So it's going to be easier on your hands and your wrist in the real world versus you're using the X where it has added weight due to the bigger 80-watt battery. It weighs your hand out after a while, and it's weird too because it's in the X is like in a weird place. It's in the in-between place because like it has some weight to it. It's definitely more heavier than this, but when you're playing it, you're into the game, it doesn't feel all that heavy. Like now that I'm holding it in my hands and I'm not thinking about it too much, it doesn't feel heavy, but it feels heavy still. Get what I'm saying? If it makes any sense. So you will feel a weight difference. The lighter the system is, the less stress on your wrists and your hands. You can hold it up a lot longer. But this one, you may run into some problems holding up for quite some time. That you have to rest your hand just like this. So it's a step forward. It's a step backwards. I do like how both Rog Ally X is smaller than the Steam Deck. I think the Steam Deck is too big, and people say it's the most comfortable system. I don't really think so. Even though it's okay, it's fine. I mean, I'm not saying that it isn't comfortable or it's the most comfortable system. I'm just saying it's not the most comfortable system. I find the Rog Ally is a lot more comfortable than the Steam Deck due to it weighing less and it's smaller. The Steam Deck is just like stretched out. I really don't like that. I never ran into issues holding this standard Rog Ally, and the X has some weight to it. This case is a fit on this, so you can tell. It feels better with the case on it though, but it doesn't fit only because this system is actually bigger than the standard one. It's raised up. It's a little thicker. So it's definitely thicker, as you can see right here. There's a little bit more grip on the back too as well. I don't know. I mean, it has its own little. It's weird, man. Like the Rog Ally and the X are both in a weird place, man. As far as comparison goes, I think there was absolutely nothing wrong with the OG design of the white model. I think they should have just kept everything the same. But it is what it is. So those are my final thoughts, guys. Yeah, man. I just feel as if you had money to upgrade, I would, just for the bigger battery. You definitely enjoy the system a lot more than this one. But if I could, if I was tech swapping like that, right now I used to be, I'm just an old guy, I'm not having the time for that stuff anymore. But if I had the time, I would actually upgrade the battery in here. If I could upgrade the battery in here, like put the 80-watt battery in here, I would rather keep this model over this model because I have less issues with this model than this model. So if this had a bigger 80-watt battery, I would say this model is better than this one because the size is perfect. It's thin. It's not heavy. It's a perfect system, man. But it just, the battery life on here is pretty bad. I've seen a guy on YouTube. He actually modded his. This dude went all out on his Rog Ally. He modded it, the last year model, and he put, I believe he put 2 batteries in here. So he actually put a bigger battery in the Rog Ally, and he put this, I believe this heat sink where the SD card slide is on the inside where the heat can't get to it. So basically you won't run into your SD cards getting fried. I thought that was dope. So I think that's actually a better model than this one. The only thing this has going for it is a 24 gig RAM and the bigger battery. But as far as the RAM, I mean, I don't know what to tell you guys, man. Like, I never really ran into any issue. But then again, I think the RAM, for real, when I think about it, the extra RAM does help in the background when I think about it because, you know, guys, I don't even know what I'm saying. I just think this has some issues because at least the frame rate would be, when I first got this unit, I was playing Sulaco on here, for example, and actually Sulaco on here had steady frame rate at 60 FPS while the frame rate was being dropped on this system, which was weird at the time. I mean, I don't know, it was weird. So I was getting better frame rates on here, more stable frame rates versus the Rog Ally X. But when I think about it, you know, the longer I had a system and the system, I broke it in, the frame rate started getting a lot more stable and a lot more better than the white one. But I guess overall, the extra RAM does help make the games run smoother because as you can see, I was playing Wolfenstein on high settings on my own custom 7-watt operating mode and getting 60 FPS. So that's awesome. I wouldn't be able to do that on here. On the Rog Ally, you pretty much have to put it in performance mode, maybe like 18 watts just to play those AAA games at a stable 60 FPS. While on this one, even the solid mode at 13 watts, you can play AAA games at 60 FPS as I demonstrated for you guys right here. So yes, you know what? I think about it, the extra 24 gigs of RAM, it does matter. The bigger battery is even better. And I think that's the biggest highlight for me. So if you want to game longer, I say get the Rog Ally X. If you already had a standard model and you don't really care too much about upgrading, or your money is tight, go ahead, keep this model with a power brick or whatever. Or what I would do is, because that's originally what I started doing, I had put my standard edition Rog Ally up on eBay for sale. So if you really want this model, due to the bigger battery and the 24 gigabyte RAM, which makes the games run a lot smoother, I would just sell my old unit to offset the price for the new one. That's the best opinion I can, or the best suggestion that I can give somebody. So if you have this model, go ahead and sell it to offset the price for this one. And also too, from what I'm hearing, you can get the brand new Rog Ally X for cheap if you can find an open box. Red Pramson 102, I'm out of here. That's all I got to say. So far, so good. I want to have an issue with the noise, the fan noise, or whatever it is. I don't know what it is. Like and subscribe if you're new to my channel. If you have any questions, man, or any games you would like to see me play on this thing, let me know in the comment section.